while most investors are still figuring out exactly how to break into Africa's energy markets, which sometimes can be very fraught with difficulty, these 5 countries just laid out a step-by-step roadmap to help investors like you make serious returns in a safe way. Let's unpack. Let's unpack this. So this opportunity is very unique in the sense that there are 5 governments. These are Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, and Zambia. They have launched a special program to build mini power grids in rural areas. And why mini power grids? The reason is that they are national grid. They don't have enough capital enough. Hydroelectric dam or a gas turbine requires a lot of capital expenditure. And most of these countries do not have the bandwidth to be able to throw out, say, $1 billion to build a new power grid system. It's almost impossible. And yet, rural areas need to be powered. They need to have electric power on to be able to take part in the national economic discourse or to be able to create jobs, basically. So there's a need to create smaller power grids, what I call solar or green energy power base, to help augment the existing power grid system available in these countries. All right, before we jump ahead of ourselves. We have this powerful, amazing report that if you're an investor and you're looking to add Africa to your portfolio of investments, or you are a multinational and you are doing business in Africa and you want to expand to other places, one of the key things that really becomes a blow to investors or businesses seeking to expand in Africa is the issue of cultural sensitivity or cultural intelligence. Many businesses make mistakes where they shoot themselves in the foot and commit cultural blunders, wipes out their investments, not because their business plans are not good, not because they are not well funded, they just commit cultural mistakes because Africa is a basket full of diverse cultures. Thankfully, we have a report called the African Advantage, which showcases 5 clusters, groups Africa as a market into 5 clusters, or the cluster means that they have similar traits, so that you'll be able to identify those kind of cultural clusters to be able to help you make successful market entry into Africa. It's a free report, very comprehensive, and you can download it for free. Use the QR code on the screen, or you use the link in the description below, to get access to that report. But that said, let's jump back into so these programs are these mini grid solutions are designed to help the rural community and even sometimes standalone factories be able to generate sufficient power to create economic value or to create jobs, to bring up industries. And that is what this is about. So what this is doing is that there are programs that are designed so that private investors get paid based on actual electricity connections made and not on any fuzzy mathematics. And that has been the fear of many investors. According to these countries, they've come up with a plan to help investors recoup their money in a very transparent way. So let's look at what the current state of play is all about. So for what I would say is that for too long, investing in Africa's energy sector has been with a lot of headache. There has been a lot of risks involved, and the plane has been very unclear. And because it's energy, or anything energy written on it has high upfront costs. And there's a lot of regulatory hurdles that gives way to slower approvals and then unreliable or unstable or rapidly changing policies, domestic policies. So it's like you want to invest, but when you get into things are changing so rapidly that you just can't figure out. And investors want predictability and stability. And because of all of that, traditionally, all these things, the conglomeration of all these factors, cared of even the boldest investors. And the issue is that almost about half the population of Africa, that's about 600 million Africans, still have issues with electricity connectivity. Power grid is insufficient. A lot of people in Africa who do not have access to stable electricity in this day and age. And that's what the opportunity is all about. So, this opportunity that I've identified is going to be basically two different opportunities that meets the same goal. These are mini power generation solutions predominantly to help governments produce power to serve Africa's rural population. And the first one is the mini grids or mini grid and rooftop solar power. These are designed to bring electricity, as I said, directly to villages or factories. So as you can see from the image background below, this is a similar solution, I think, in the country of Benin. So you can see from the background, there's this. I don't think you'll see my clicker. If I click on it, we'll just move to the next slide. So I'm just going to attempt to just use this bubble to show that. It's a power grid that is serving a predominantly rural area in Benin, right? So what is happening is that this is the opportunity, and this opportunity is happening at the point in time where the cost of hardware for these mini grids are going down. In terms of to quantify, there's an organization called the African Mini Grid Development Association. So they are saying that the cost of the hardware cost for these mini grid solutions has reduced by 20% since the year 2020. So that is very significant. The need is high, the cost is going down. So that helps African businesses or African-led enterprises to be able to have access to cheaper source of stable power or stable electricity. And the cool thing is that not only is this opportunity, not only is the hardware cost going down, but now there's access to what we call blended finance, where there are a lot of big banks like World Bank, Africa Development Bank, who are throwing their weight behind investors. Basically, they are making it less riskier for investors to be able to put money into investment opportunities like this, by basically saying that if you invest and something were to go wrong, we've got your back. Basically, that's what they are doing. So they have a lot of grants, a lot of custom products or custom solutions that are available to help investors looking to jump into this opportunity. Basically, the next one, which is also very unique, is also aimed at producing power to serve all these rural communities and even factories as well. The same thing is stranded natural gas wells together with smaller turbines. Let me explain that. So when oil and gas firms go to explore or to mine for oil, sometimes they opportunistically or sometimes they hit natural gas, and which is a good thing. Africa sits on a large deposit of natural gas. I think rough estimate put it over 600 trillion metric tons of natural gas that Africa sits in. It's huge. So sometimes these oil and gas firms just operating in very remote and rural parts of Africa just hit on these natural gas and it begins to flow. But the problem is that there are no pipelines available to connect these natural gas readily to the city centers. So what happens is that they just burn them off, or they call it flaring. They just flare them off because the gas needs to be flared. And what happens is that when they flare them off, it pollutes the environment. And it even causes them to flare them off as well. So what if investors were to invest in getting smaller gas turbines to make use of those free natural gas that they would have to burn off anyways, that they would have to basically discard? What if investors were to put money together and invest in natural gas plants within those very rural areas so that electricity can be produced and then be connected back to the national grid. Or, at a minimum, be used to provide power to the local community or local factories. That becomes a win-win solution or proposition for everybody, right? So why does this matter at all? The reason why it matters at all is that recently there was a conference or a business, one of the largest CEO forums in Africa, called the Africa CEO Forum, held in Abidjan recently in Ivory Coast. And one of the key speakers that came to speak came from the IFC, International Finance Corporation, which is an umbrella under the World Bank. And he laid this out that they've helped these five countries, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, and Zambia. They have created a result-based financing program that together, that package is going to generate 300 megawatts of mini-grid electricity. 300 megawatts is massive. 300 megawatts of mini-grid deployment. And what is required is capital of $400 million needs to be deployed by impact investors to be able to unlock this 300 megawatts. And there's a policy framework or this financing program already available if investors would want to take part of this program. And the cool thing is that once investors, this coming from the IFC, once investors put in money, they will start seeing returns in as quickly as 9 months. So within 9 months, they will start seeing cash flow. That is what IFC said, not me. And the returns, the annum is anywhere between 12 to 18%, which is very good. I don't classify basically, I'm not looking at the absolute returns or in terms of the money alone, but I'm looking at the impact that investment is going to cause to that local community. That dressmaker or seamstress in that village who can't do their work because there's no electricity or the power grid is so erratic. That local factory that makes maybe orange juice or pineapple juice or whatever it is that is exported outside the country, but they can't do much. Their capacity is very limited because of unreliable electricity. Think about the impact that would make, whilst making anywhere between 12 to 18%. And obviously, that kind of return is even difficult to get in the developed world. Right? So I've talked a lot. Let's summarize what the key facts are. So these are the key facts. Based on what the IFC said at that event, it said that 5 countries, that is Nigeria, Sierra Leone, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Zambia, they need 300 megawatts of rural grid capacity. And there's a program they have now to unlock this quantum of power grid that these countries need. There's a program available, and $400 million of capital needs to be deployed. That's the opportunity for investors to be a part of this. And I'm going to share about the returns for both the gas turbine and the mini grid. Then the internal rate of return, or the returns, let's put it simply, return. That's profits. It's estimated. It's going to be anywhere between 12 to 18%, which is a very decent return on investment. But as I said, to me, the biggest return is the joy in seeing that your investment, which is backed by World Bank guarantee, backed by Africa Development Bank guarantee, to basically be a backstop in case the things go sour, which makes the investment less risky. Your investment is going to put smiles on the faces of many Africans living in the rural areas, which is going to help local industries, manufacturing industries that are in very rural areas to be able to get power, to be able to expand businesses. To me, that is the excitement. And that is the joy of what we do, right? Then it's also, the cash flow starts right around the 9th month. All right. Let me just pause here and say that if you are interested in doing business in Africa, one thing you cannot ignore is cultural intelligence. You can't do that. You do that, you will have problems, or your business or your investments may collapse. Cultural sensitivity is a big thing in Africa. So to do any real business in Africa, you need to understand the cultural nuances. To help you do that, we have a free report that shows regional cultural clusters that you need to be aware of to be able to enter Africa. And it's free. And this kind of report shows you the 5 different cultural clusters that are available in Africa. In the cultural clusters, in the sense that culturally, these 5 regions are quite similar. So you can make extrapolations, and then if you want to expand, you can expand within clusters. And if you want to expand outside of a cluster, you need to understand, right? So you can use the QR code on the screen to get the report, or you can use the link in the description to get the report. All right. So as I said, this is backed by World Bank guarantees, basically a form of insurance for you, which makes your investment less and less risky. Let's see how you as an investor can earn out of this. So the first thing is an equity play. So think about it this way: a company which already has a contract with the government, because these power producing companies, this is an opportunity that is actually on the ground running, or some of them are starting now as we speak. So you find a company within these countries, and there are going to be many countries that needs these kind of things. It's just the World Bank started with these 5 countries. First of all, let me not jump ahead of myself. I'm excited. So first of all, you find a power company that has long-term contracts. So you're talking of 10 to 20-year contracts, right? And then you just purchase equity in that company. Basically, you own a piece of power companies with long-term safe contracts, because there's a contract with the government, and that contract is secure, and that contract is long-term. So you find an organization like that, and you chip in your money to help them increase their capacity, or buy or invest to help them invest basically in that power grid. That's number 1. Then number 2 way of earning is green bonds. So what happened is that a green bond is basically a fund that is geared towards projects that are eco-friendly. So you are loaning your money to a project that is eco-friendly or green. The returns on that are quite smaller, but the incentive or the motivation is that most people who invest in green bonds have the environment or sustainable development and sustainability as a passion, or as a goal, or as a heart desire, or as an interest. So there are investors who are like, so if you're an investor and you are into that area, or that is your passion, you can look into that, where you lend eco-friendly bond that pays you interest with a range of 6 to 10%. And this loan is going to be insured by aid groups and World Bank, or World Bank affiliated groups. So that is number 2. Then number 3, I call this the icing on the cake. Carbon credit is now a big global phenomenon, where organizations that produce green energy or greener energy gets rewarded for that. And they get rewarded by organizations, companies, institutions that produces fossil fuels, or I would call them dirty energy. If there's clean energy, there's dirty energy, right? So fossil fuels. So there's a trade-off between the two of them. So when you create, or when you get to be a part of those who are creating greener energy, you get rewarded with credits. And these credits are tradable. They are money. So what happens is that your investment in a power generator allows you to participate in receiving monies from carbon credits. And this is how it works. It works that every megawatt hour your plant or your solar mini grid produces, you get paid anywhere between $3 and $7. And that is significant. That is a very, very decent extra income on top of the returns that you would traditionally would have made. So basically, you pocket extra planet-saving cash from selling carbon credits on every unit of clean energy that is produced. That is significant. So let's recap. How you earn money, how you earn as an investor is an equity play. So you invest in a power producing plant or a company that produces power. You invest and then you receive your equity allows you to be a part of that company, or you own a piece of that company. You can also invest in green bonds, and then thirdly, you can be able to trade carbon credits. So those are the three main identified channels by which you get to receive. So let's look at the tickets and the returns. Very simple, very straightforward. The mini grid portfolio, you're looking at an optimized investment range of anywhere between $5 to $15 million in equity. That is, funding between that range. You can still do less than that, but I'm looking at to make the real impact, to have a bigger bite of the opportunity or bigger bite of the apple. That's the kind of portfolio size that you may be looking at. Yet, you still will be able to do far less than that if you are joining up with a team of other investors to do so. As I said, the return on that is between 12 and 18%, which is very respectable investment return, judging from the impact your money is going to be making in rural Africa. Then the next one is the gas to power projects. That is slightly higher, or I would say higher, not slightly. That is higher, between $50 to $200 million. And with that, the returns or the profits, it's anywhere between 14 to 20% because of the no or zero fuel costs or near zero fuel costs. The returns on that project are higher. I don't think that would give you access to carbon credit though, but it's needful. This is because the gas would have been burnt to destroy the environment. But you are actually helping investing to save the environment. So I may be wrong in the carbon credit bit. If you have experience that, I would want to hear your take on that, especially the gas to power projects as it relates to carbon credits. I would want to hear your opinion on that in the comment section. That's very, very helpful to us because I'm looking at it purely from producing green energy. But I'm also thinking about it that without the gas power plant, the gas would have been flared up or burned into the atmosphere already. So basically, you're helping save the environment. Okay, so with that said, for every investment opportunity, there is a risk. There is either explicit risk or inherent risk, right? The first risk that I identify is unpaid bills. That is, if the mini grid solution produces electricity for rural folk and they end up not paying, what do you do? The good thing is that in most African countries, most electricity production or electricity consumers typically use prepaid meters. There is no postpaid. I mean, there may be postpaid, but it's becoming less popular. The most popular solution in Africa as we speak now is prepaid smart meters. Once they are installed, if they do not pay upfront, they do not get access to the power. So that makes the electricity retail organization or company be able to recoup their investments very, very quickly because it's prepaid. The other thing is currency swings. So typically when we say currency swings, it's currencies performing badly against the US dollar. So that when power is sold and you want to convert your money back to US dollar into your home country, then you get less dollars. So to do that, you can hedge your currency. I used to work for travel group back in the UK in those days, and Thomas Cook Group, and we used to have a big treasury function that dealt with hedging of currencies and fuel. So it's something that is not new. There's a Pan-African payment, I think, settlement system run by Afrexim Bank. They can buy currency swaps from there to be able to help you offset any kind of potential currency swings. And then, for me, the most important one has to do with policy changes, because that is a big thing. That at the time of signing agreements with the government and everything, there was this policy there that protected the agreement. And all of a sudden, 3 months down the road, it just keeps dancing around, or politicians begin to change the policy just like that. Most of the changes, unfortunately, may have an impact on the financial viability of the agreement that you just signed. So to mitigate that, you have to insist on having stability clauses in your power purchase agreements, particularly as it relates to, so basically the company that you are going to invest in. So if it's a power company you're going to be investing in, you make sure that that power company has these stability clauses in the agreement, so that should in case government were to dance around changing their policies like they are trigger happy, anytime they change their policy and that policy will have a knock-on effect on the viability of the agreement, the government gets to pay. And that is, I'm not a lawyer by any means, consult with your law firms and things, but to me, that is common sense. That is standard in many of these power and mining agreements in Africa that are very subject to policy changes or rapid policy changes. They put in place stability clauses to protect against policy changes that will be detrimental to the agreement. And that brings us to the end of this episode. And if you have experience in this area, I'll be interested to know about your experience in power grid investment or power mini opportunities as it relates to Africa and your involvement. I'll be so happy if you have experiences like that. With that said, if you still haven't downloaded that report, this is an opportunity, a fine opportunity to download the African Advantage, which is a report that showcases the regional cultural clusters as it relates to investing in Africa. Don't make that mistake whereby you put large swaths of capital in Africa and you are not aware of the cultural nuances that are on the ground. And this report gives you the ability to visualize at a high level the 5 different cultural clusters that are in Africa. And once you know that, there's very little chance that you're going to be making those kind of mistakes. And these clusters are grouped together because they exhibit similar cultural traits. And if you know that, it even becomes easier to expand into those clusters, your business operations. You can have that free via the QR code on page, or on there's a link in the description that you can use. With that said, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace.